Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Hello and welcome to Lost in Science for another week. This is, of course, 30 minutes of the most illuminating, the shiniest, the brightest,
the hottest,
the warm, glowy feeling you get when you listen to science on your radio. My name is Claire, and with me this week I have Kat. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Now, all those superlatives are going to make a lot more sense when we reveal what this week's show is all about, aren't they, Kat?
Absolutely. Like I said, hot science.
And it's so hot because we're talking about
the sun.
That's right. That's right. Of course. The sun. We're going to be talking about the sun. And what are you going to be talking about in relation to the sun this week, Kat?
Well, I'm going to be talking about the sun's corona. You may have heard of the sun's beautiful, dazzling crown, as well as the solar particles and the solar winds that are coming off the sun all the time.
Brilliant. Excellent. And I'm going to be doing a bit of a dive into the sun also and into the zone of totality.
Woohoo.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard that phrase recently, Kat? The zone of totality? Because it is a cool phrase.
It is a cool phrase, and I believe it's been thrown around the news quite recently.
It has, because there is a quite a large zone of totality, if you know what I mean, going through North America for a total solar eclipse. Ooh. That's right. Yep. The moon's getting all up in our face between us and the sun and causing all sorts of incredible moments of darkness where there should be light. So it's just a great time to be thinking about the sun and the moon and everything in between, and us and where we are in the universe and what it all means. Spoiler alert, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but we can certainly learn a little bit about things from total solar eclipses. So stay tuned for that. Some of the hottest, some of the brightest, some of the best science for this week with our Sunny Time special. On with the show.
I'm Maggie Adair Pocock, and you're listening to Lost in Science.
Claire, so we said that we're talking about hot science today because, we're talking about the sun. And the sun is pretty hot. The visible surface of the sun is around 6,000 degrees Celsius. That's pretty hot.
That's pretty hot. That is very hot.
But a few thousand kilometers above it, it actually jumps up. So when I say a few thousand kilometers, that's actually quite a small distance when you consider the vast size of the sun. It's 1.4 million kilometers in diameter. It's very, very big.
It's very big.
Like, I don't know if you've ever seen, the pictures of the sun and then like the earth next to it. It's just insane.
It's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is. Like the sun makes up 99.86% of all the mass in our solar system. So that's like, the rest of that, the 0.14% is like Jupiter, Saturn, Earth, all the moons, everything else. So yeah, sun is pretty big. But only a few thousand kilometers above it, in the what we call the solar atmosphere or the corona. So I spoke about the crown. Whenever you draw a picture of a sun and then you do like the little crowny thing around it, that's the corona. It's
I never knew we were all drawing the sun like so anatomically correct from such a young age.
Yeah. Or,
Very
some people
cool.
do it as lines, but yeah, totally. But that space, the corona, is hundreds of times hotter. So it reaches 1 million degrees Celsius or higher, like 15 million degrees.
And what's going on there?
Well, the spike in temperature was something that a lot of scientists were a bit puzzled about because you're getting further away from the sun's main energy source. And this is actually the case for many stars that we observe, that, they're sort of hot on the surface, but then they're hotter a little bit outside. So scientists were like, okay, maybe it's the properties of the sun that can perhaps explain this discrepancy or this sort of disparity or jump. So the sun is composed almost entirely of plasma. You may have heard of plasma as being a different state of matter. We usually talk about solids, liquids, and gases, but then when we think of the sun, it's like, oh yeah, plasma, that comes to mind. So that's really highly ionized gas that carries an electrical charge. And the movement of this plasma, so this gas in the upper part of kind of the interior, the solar interior, produces these huge electrical currents and strong magnetic fields. So the sun has electric charge and it has these magnetic fields. And in 1942, a Swedish scientist proposed that magnetized waves of plasma could carry huge amounts of energy along the sun's magnetic field from the interior out to the corona, bypassing that kind of, I guess, atmosphere, that little section above the surface of the sun, before sort of exploding with heat in the sun's upper atmosphere. So if you picture this idea of convection, it's similar to what you see in a pot that you have boiling with water before you put the pasta in, and you've got like all these bubbles kind of going from the bottom to the top. And they don't sort of travel all the way through. It's sort of like, boom, suddenly it's at the top. That's kind of what's going on in the sun, we think. Like, so just waves of heat jumping up.
Wow.
And even beyond this corona, particles from the sun are carried far out by solar winds. So this kind of begins in the core. Let me sort of backtrack. I've talked about the surface and the kind of like corona of the sun, but at the core, 500 million metric tons of hydrogen undergo nuclear fusion every second. That's a lot of nuclear fusion. And this creates tremendous amounts of energy. So that's, no surprise that the sun makes so much energy. But every now and then, there are large eruptions of charged particles that just burst out from the core. And these are sort of solar flares and often accompanied by coronal mass ejections. So if you think about that term, coronal mass ejections, it's like ejections of stuff from the sun's corona. So large expulsions of magnetized particles that are shooting out at speeds of up to 3,500 kilometers per second. So the sun shoots out lots of energy, but also lots of charged particles and solar winds. And the bulk of these ejections are kind of mostly alpha particles, which are positive, and beta particles, which are negative. So lots and lots of charged particles are coming out from the sun. And these can impact different planets in different ways. So I just want to break down how it impacts us here on Earth first. At least here on Earth, we're protected in this like little protective cocoon of the Earth's magnetic field. You might be familiar with the idea of Earth having a magnetic field because we can use compasses.
Yeah. It's very convenient.
It is very convenient. Helps us not get lost. But it also protects us from all these particles that are coming off the sun. So what's happening is in Earth's core, there's this whole bit of molten iron, so liquid iron that's liquid. It's really, really hot, and it's under all that pressure because it's right in the core of Earth. And it's spinning. So it's moving around, and this makes a magnetic field. If you think about like iron moving, that's kind of how you can get a magnet if you get movement of metal. And this magnetic field kind of makes like a protective bubble or a protective shield around us, protecting us from this radiation and all of these particles that are coming from our sun. And, you know, plus side, we also get a compass working. But what it's also doing is shielding our atmosphere from erosion by these solar winds. So with the solar winds, remember, there are lots of charged particles, and these damage things. So when charged particles are like whipping through like any sort of matter at very, very fast speeds, it can damage the stuff. And so thankfully, it's not whipping through our atmosphere and damaging our atmosphere.
So is this something that like the International Space Station would have to contend with?
Thankfully, they are like quite close to Earth. So when we're in low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is, it's in the hundreds of kilometers above Earth, is still protected by that magnetic field. You're not completely protected. So just as a little aside, we are constantly exposed to radiation, just low levels of radiation. If you go for an X-ray, you get an extra dose. So usually from rocks and things around us, like on Earth, we get about 3 millisieverts per year. If you get like a full body CT scan or an X-ray, that jumps up. And essentially the regulations are like Department of Energy's regulations are that you need to be exposed to less than 50 millisieverts per year. But if you're an astronaut on the International Space Station, you're exposed to 100 in 6 months. That's why, well, it's one of the reasons why astronauts can't stay on the International Space Station for too long, because they don't want to be exposed to radiation for too long. So yes, that was a very good question. And it's one of the biggest challenges that we have to kind of overcome for space travel. Like, say we want to go to the moon. When they went to the moon last time, they timed it really well, because if you think about Earth constantly moving around the sun, sometimes if you're headed towards the moon, if the moon's further away from the sun, you can kind of be in the little tail of the bubble, sort of expanding out from Earth. Whereas if the moon is in between the sun and the Earth, you're headed towards the sun, towards the radiation, and that's not good. So they had to time very, very carefully. But going to Mars, that's like a 180-day transit. So that's already pushing it for humans in terms of the amount of radiation that we can accept. And so, yeah, that's one of the biggest things that we have to solve, really, if we want to get to Mars or live on the moon. So yeah, like this is a really big thing that impacts, our ability to do space travel. Thankfully doesn't impact our atmosphere, but it can impact our communications at times. I don't know if you've heard about the 1989 blackout in Quebec in Canada.
No, I haven't.
So, I said that we're protected, but it's not perfect. Like, the magnetic shield isn't the perfect defense. Sometimes variations in solar wind can disturb it, leading to what we call space weather. There are storms that can penetrate into our atmosphere, and that sort of, threatens spacecraft and astronauts, as I kind of alluded to. But it can also wreak havoc on power grids. So in 1989, they called this the day the sun brought darkness.
Wow.
So there was a powerful coronal mass ejection. So that's, particles coming off the sun at high speeds, and it hit Earth's magnetic field. And 90 seconds later, the power grid in Quebec failed. And the reason that Quebec was especially vulnerable is because the province sits on a type of rock that does a very poor job conducting electricity. So when the charged particles arrive, hoping to sort of go through as a current, it was much easier to just go through the power lines rather than go into the rock and sort of just dissipate that way. So that's why the power grids failed. But on the plus side, these storms also produce our spectacular auroras. So, you win some, you lose some. Our neighbor Mars is a little different though. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of sunset or sunrise on Mars, but they have blue sunrises and sunsets. And the reason that their sky looks so different is because of the difference in our atmospheres. Mars lost its magnetic field 3.8 billion years ago, and so its atmosphere is vulnerable to attack by the sun and all these charged particles and solar winds coming off. It's stripping away Mars's atmosphere, and so now it's reduced to just like 1% of Earth's atmosphere. So they have such a thin atmosphere that's why their sky is different.
Wow. So could that be our future sometime a long, long way away?
Well, our magnetic field has held up for billions of years. Touch wood. It'll keep holding up. I guess it's still a little bit of a mystery as to, perhaps exactly what happened on Mars and why it lost its magnetic field. But so far, our defenses are holding.
That's very good to hear.
Yeah, so the sun can be quite magnificent, quite powerful, and hopefully we can learn to defend ourselves a little bit better, I think. So we can travel into space and venture.
What are you onto? Anything of interest to the scientific community?
Together, you and I are going to make the greatest single contribution to science since the creation of fire.
It's a big scientific experiment. What do I know?
Across Australia on the Community Radio Network, you're listening to Lost in Science.
So, Kat, you may have heard there is a total solar eclipse. It's happened across North America. And it's been a moment of total lunacy over there. I mean, all this talk of zones of totality, day becoming night, homemade eclipse glasses, it's got me hungry for some eclipse science. And you know what? Full disclosure, I don't think this is the first story about eclipses I've done on Lost in Science, but I'm going to do another one because they are so darn hot. Cold. I don't know.
They are, and I'm disappointed, that we didn't get to see it from here in Australia.
I know, but well, stay tuned for the end of my story and I'll tell you when we will get one. All right? I promise, Kat. So let's talk a little bit about solar eclipses, what they are, what type of science can be done during a solar eclipse, and of course, when will we get to see one? So, Kat, solar eclipse. It occurs when the moon passes between the sun and the earth, casting the moon's shadow on Earth. And it only happens occasionally because the moon doesn't orbit in the exact same plane as the sun and the Earth do. So it is a sort of semi-rare occurence.
Because it kind of bobs up and down, right?
It bobs up and down. That's a good way of describing it. Yeah. Now, two things need to occur at once for you to see a solar eclipse. So the sun, the moon, and the Earth need to be in a straight line with the moon between the sun and the Earth, and you need to be standing in the correct spot on Earth. Now, lucky for us, our moon, in just this perfect symmetry, it's the perfect size and it's located at the perfect distance. So when it passes in front of the sun, it covers the sun's disk. And during an annular eclipse, the moon is a bit closer to the sun, so it leaves the edge of the sun's disk uncovered. And the result looks like quite a large, bright ring of fire in the sky. During a total eclipse, the sun's disk is completely covered, allowing the outermost layer of the atmosphere, the corona, to shine out around the moon. And that's a pretty spectacular display by all accounts. Now, when you think about it, the idea of the moon and the sun being exactly the same size and, crossing over each other, it's a weird idea because we know they're not the same size,
Yeah. I heard about the rule of like the 400 thing, and I'm just like, that is my mind blown.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. It is. It's an extraordinary coincidence. The sun is 400 times the diameter of the moon, and it's also 400 times farther away from us.
Crazy coincidence.
So it's just this 400. It's easy to think that, what is going on there? No, it's just this crazy coincidence that makes this spectacular event for us. And the relationship between size and distance makes the sun and the moon appear the same size in the sky. It's pretty amazing. And Earth is the only planet in the solar system with a moon, with a moon the proper size and distance for this sort of solar eclipse to happen. So we're very lucky. Now, the motions of sun, moon, and earth, and bringing these three celestial bodies into alignment, it happens 2 to 4 times a year. But a perfect alignment, resulting in a total solar eclipse, only occurs somewhere on our planet once every 18 months or so. And just on that, I read this, and this is sort of fun to think about. If you think about Earth as a whole, any given spot on Earth, wherever you are listening to this, that spot on Earth will witness a total solar eclipse about once every 375 years on average.
You might be waiting a while.
You might be waiting a while. You might have to travel a little bit, but at the same time, there's sort of like something reassuring about that. We'll all get our solar eclipse eventually. And there's been a really long history of eclipses affecting the course of human history. On May 28 in 585 BC, according to Herodotus, an eclipse led the Medes and the Lydians, after more than 5 years of war, to come to peace.
Oh.
So, eclipses have got a history of bringing peace. And then more than 100 years before that, the Assyrian royalty of Mesopotamia protected themselves from the ill omen of solar eclipses by they would install a substitute king and queen for the day. So if there was a solar eclipse, they'd take the queen or king off the throne, put a substitute on, and then after they did their due diligence or did their duty, they were killed.
Oh.
So, yeah, I know, crazy. But in one instance, when the real king died, the stand-in, who had been a gardener, then held the throne for decades, apparently.
Good old gardener.
Good on the gardener. And more recently, an eclipse on May 29 in 1919 enabled measurements that recorded the sun bending the path of light, and this verified Einstein's theory of general relativity as a whole. And also eclipses, in helium, the element, was first discovered during an eclipse in 1868. This was through spectroscopy by astronomer Joseph Norman Lockyer. So, things happen during eclipses. Like, peace happens, peacetime comes about to armies and nations at war. We've got elements discovered, and Einstein's theory of general relativity, we understand the universe more as a whole. They're pretty special events. And even today, scientists study eclipses. They're making new discoveries about the sun, the earth, and our space environment. Total solar eclipses are particularly important because they allow us to see the corona in a much clearer way than we ever are able to, because the sun's so bright. The corona is really too faint to see unless the sun is blocked. Scientists can use something called a coronagraph to block the sun's light, but even these instruments still struggle to reveal the corona that's closest to the sun because of the constant stream of particles that's, that the sun's spewing out. So, yeah, total solar eclipses also provide an opportunity to study the Earth's atmosphere under weird conditions. So instead of the light changes you see normally at dusk and dawn, solar eclipses change the light on Earth and its atmosphere just in that small area underneath the moon's shadow. So when the change is sort of, localized and the blocking of solar energy is really localized, we can study how the sun affects our atmosphere and especially the upper atmosphere and what's going on in the ionosphere. So it's super important for things to be able to study the ionosphere for low Earth orbit satellites and communication signals and, just communication systems of a whole. So there's a lot of science that's going on and we know, it's that these total solar eclipses, they're going to arrive on our doorstep sometime in, let's say 300 to 350 years. But Kat, I've got some good news for you.
Oh, good. I won't just sit around.
You don't have to sit around for another 300 years. Australia's next total solar eclipse will be on July 22nd, 2028. So suddenly, that's only 4 years away.
Yeah.
It's only 4 years away. That's just another Olympic Games, right? It's it's set to be a good one. It goes directly over the Sydney CBD and a huge stretch of Australia as well. So the path of totality, so that's where the moon completely blocks out the sun. It'll stretch from Wollongong nearly all the way to Newcastle, and Bathurst and Orange and Dubbo are all so in line to be able to see it really nicely.
So I'll have to travel north? Is that what you're saying?
So you'll have to travel north.
I'll be an eclipse chaser.
Right. You'll be, oh my gosh, I'll be right there with you, Kat, with my homemade eclipse glasses ready to go.
And that's it for another episode of Lost in Science. Lost in Science is recorded for 3CR in Melbourne on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and it airs across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the support of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. We would love you to get in touch with us. You can email us at lostinsci@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, we're Lost in Science on 3CR, or on Twitter, where we're at Lost in Science 1. You can find us on your favourite podcast app, where if you get the chance, please give us a good rating and review, as that will raise us up in the search rankings so other people can find the science. Or you can listen to us however you listen to us now, where at the same time every week, Claire, Stu and Chris get Lost in Science!
Thanks for listening to a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online.